Biology class, Fatima Convent High School, Chapter 16, Sustainable Management of Natural Resources, Class 10th, myself, Dipali. We are going to do the next session of this chapter, session 2. Here we are going to understand why we need to have sustainable management of these natural resources and various other natural resources, how are they conserved. So why do we need to manage our resources? Not just roads and buildings, but all things we use or consume, food, clothes, books, toys, furniture, tools and vehicles are obtained from resources on this earth. The only thing we get from outside is energy which we receive from sun. Even this energy is processed by living organisms and various physical and chemical processes on the earth before we make use of it. So, we are not getting any energy or anything ready-made. Everything takes a long time and it requires lots of processes going on through it that you get the energy or the things which we are utilizing. So why do we use your source carefully? Because there are not unlimited, and with the human population increasing at the tremendous rate due to improvement in healthcare, the demand of all resources is increasing at an exponential rate. So the first reason for managing the resources is they are not unlimited and the human population is increasing, and to meet this demand the resources has to be increased as it is increasing at an exponential rate. So the management of natural resources requires a long-term perspective so that this will last for generations to come and will not merely be exploited to the hilt of short-term gain. So, to have it for a long time and for many more people and generation as they are limited, we need to conserve them. This management should also ensure equitable distribution of resources so that all and not just a handful of rich and powerful people benefit from the development of these resources. So the second point is they should be equally distributed, and for that we need to manage them. Another factor to be considered while we exploit these natural resources is damage we cause to the environment while these resources are either extracted or used. For example, mining causes pollution because of large amount of slag which is discarded from every ton of metal extracted. Hence, sustainable natural resource management demands that we plan for a safe disposal of these wastes too. So, the damage which we are causing to the environment has to be covered up by managing these resources in such a way that we do not cause harm to the environment or cause imbalance in the environment. Fourth is the present global warming, certain forms of sustainable development and conservation of natural resources are of recent origin as compared to long tradition and culture of nature conservation in our country. Principles of conservation and sustainable management were well established in the prehistoric India. So now the new problems which are arising due to globalization, we need to manage the resources in a still better way so that we can meet the modern demands. Fifth, our ancient literature is full of such examples where values and sensitivity of human towards nature was glorified and the principle of sustainability was established at at its best. So, we can observe that practices for conservation of nature in our day to day life, share within the peer group, make a report, and submit it. So, Indian texts such as Upanishads and Smritis contain many descriptions of on the uses and management of forest and highlight sustainability as an implicit theme. One hymn from Atharva Veda 12.1.1 later translated into English. In the book of Atharva Veda, the Sanskrit text with English translation written by Devi Chand in 1997 reads, O earth, pleasant be thy hill, snow-clad mountains and forests, O numerous colored, firm and protected earth, O this earth I stand undefeated, unslain, unhurt. So it is easily telling us that how the earth has pleasant nature and pleasant surrounding, and to protect them we need to be very much sensible. Instead of damaging it, we need to protect it by various ways and various methods. Another hymn that reveals utilization and regeneration principle from the Atharva Veda 12.1.35 reads, Whatever I dig out of you, O earth, may that have quick regeneration again. May we not damage thy vital habitat and heart. So we have to be careful that we do not want to damage it, and we are giving back whatever we are taking. The concept of cultural landscape such as sacred forest and groves, sacred corridors and variety of ethnoforestry practices were involved that continued to post-Vedic period. Besides a wide range of ethnoforestry practices were infused with traditions, customs and rituals and followed as a mean for protection of nature and natural resources. So, the main reason why we should be protecting our natural resources can be listed as management of natural resources so that we have it for longer generation and longer time period. We see that they are equally distributed with all the society, and we do not damage the environment so that we are able to balance the nature and environment and our mother earth. Now let us move to the next topic, that is forest and wildlife. Forests are biodiversity hotspots. One measure of the biodiversity of an area is the number of species found there. However, the range of different life forms, bacteria, fungi, ferns, flowering plants, nematodes, insects, birds, reptiles and so on found in is also important. It is not only large animals are important, but all animals, even the smallest bacteria, is important to maintain the food chain and food web. One of the main aims of conservation is to try and preserve the biodiversity we have inherited. There are several examples in this session where many people tried to damage this and tried to destroy the forest for their selfish purpose. But there were people who fought against that and tried to maintain and inherit the cultural and the forest reserves so that we have it till now well protected. Experiments and field studies suggest that loss of diversity may lead to loss of ecological ability. So, do you think what are the forest products which are available to us or around us, and how are we using these forest products? Then, if we try to make a list of these forest products, what are they? Wood, bamboo, fuel, timber, fruits, herbs, paper, medicines, and many other products are available from the forest. Yes, the paper in which you write or your notebooks are a product obtained from forest. So indirectly you are using a forest product. Same way there are n number of things around you which is obtained from forest. Now, what do you think a person living near a forest would use? Obviously, they will be using wood, fodder, dry leaves, bamboo, fruits, vegetables, herbs, etc. And what do you think a person living in a forest would use? Person living in a forest is almost entirely dependent on the forest for all basic needs. Firewood, small timber, fodder and grass, bamboo, nuts and medicine, food, clothing, shelter, fishing, hunting, etc. Almost every life necessities, they will be depending on the forest. And did you discuss with your classmate how these needs differ or do not differ and the reason of same? Now, people who live in a village or a town are less dependent on the forest than those who live in or near the forest. So you can see that the people who are a part of the forest or stakeholders, those who own something for the forest, depends upon where they live. They live away from the forest, they live close by the forest, or they live inside the forest. So we all use various forest products, but our dependency on the forest resources varies. Some of us have access to alternatives, some do not. When we consider the conservation of forest, we need to look at stakeholders who are the people who live in or around forest are dependent on forest products for various aspects of their life. A forest department of government which owns the land and controls the resources from the forest. These all are stakeholders. The industrialist, from those who use tendu leaves to make beedis to ones with paper mills, who uses various forest products but are not dependent on the forest in any one area. The wildlife and the nature enthusiasts who can want to conserve nature in its pristine form, original form. These all are stakeholders of the forest. Now let us take a look at what each of these group need get out of the forest. The local people needs large quantity of firewood, small timbers and thatches. Bamboo is used to make slants for slates for huts and baskets for collecting and storing food material. Implements for agriculture, fishing and hunting are largely made of wood. Also, forests are site of fishing and hunting. In addition to the people gathering fruits, nuts and medicines from the forest, their cattle also graze in forest area or feed on fodder which is collected from the forest. So, these are the basic uses of forest. Do you think such use of forest resources would lead to exhaustion of their resources? Do not forget that before the British came and took over more of our forest area, people have been living in these forests for centuries. But they had developed a practice to ensure that the resources were used in a sustainable manner. And so they were not greedy and were not destroying the forest because they tried to use the things which could be replenished, like the leaves, the branches of the trees, which they used to cut and fell, but they regrow and they do not cut the trees completely. According to the Sanskrit shloka we read before, that whatever they dig out of the earth, whatever they take from the forest, they used to return. That was Indian culture. But after the British took control of the forest, which they exploited ruthlessly for their own purpose, these people were forced to depend on much smaller area and forest resources started becoming overexploited to some extent. The Forest Department in independent India took over from the British, but local knowledge and local needs continued to be ignored in the management practices. And because of that, there was large damage to the forest. Thus, vast tracts of forest have been converted to monocultures of pine, teak, and eucalyptus. These are all woods of timber or firewood or fodder. In order to plant these trees, huge areas are first cleared of all vegetations. This destroys a large amount of biodiversity in the area. Not only this, the varied needs of local people, leaves for fodder, herbs for medicine, fruits and nuts for food, can no longer be met from such forest. Such plantations are useful for the industries to assess specific products and are an important source of revenue for the forest departments. Do you know how many industries are based on forest products? A short count reveals timber, paper, lac, and sports equipment. Industries would consider the forest as merely a source of raw material for its factory, and huge interest group lobby the government for access to these raw materials at artificially low rate. Since these industries have a great reach than the local people, they are not interested in sustainability of the forest in one particular area. For example, after cutting down all the teak trees in one area, they will get their teak from the forest further away. They are not bothered to replenish that area. They do not have any stake in ensuring that one particular area should yield an optimal amount of some products for all generations to come. What do you think will stop the local people in behaving in a similar manner? Find out any two forest products that are based on basis for any industries. So, if you try to list these two products, tendu leaves, which are used in beedi industries, essential oils are used in manufacturing of soap and cosmetics. Overexploitation of forest is not sustainable in long run. So we need to control our consumption. Plantation of tree is necessary. So now lastly we come to know to the nature and wildlife enthusiasts who are in no way dependent on the forest but who may also considerably say in their management. The conservationists were initially taken up with large animals like lion, tiger, elephant and rhinos, and various projects were put forth for their protection and to stop them from becoming extinct. They now recognize the need to preserve biodiversity as a whole, not only these large animals, because even a bacteria is important. But shouldn't we recognize people as forthcoming part of the forest system? There have been enough instances of local people working traditionally for conservation of forest. For example, the case of Bisnoy's community lived in western Rajasthan on the border of Thar desert. They played a very great role in 1731. Conservation of forest and wildlife has been a religious tenet for them. These nature-loving people have for centuries been conserving the flora and fauna to the extent of sacrificing their life to protect the environment. They are living with the basic philosophy that all living things have a right to survive and share the resources. The government of India had recently instituted an Amrita Devi Bisnoy National Award for Wildlife Conservation in the memory of Amrita Devi Bisnoy, who in 1731 sacrificed her life along with 363 others for protection of khejri trees in Kejriwal village near Jodhpur in Rajasthan. So can you imagine how a person can give a life and protect the nature? That was a very important incident in the life history, and because of that, government has recognized it as an award. Studies have shown that the prejudice against the traditional use of forest areas have no basis. Here is an example. The Great Himalayan National Park contains within its reserved areas alpine meadows which are grazed by sheep in summer. Nomadic shepherds drove their flocks up from the valley every summer. When these national parks was formed, this practice was put to an end. Now it is seen that without the regular grazing of sheep, the grass first grows very tall and then falls over, preventing the fresh ones to grow. So we can see that how it is balancing the nature, and if you don't do that, how it is damaging the ecosystem. Management of protected areas by keeping the local people out of or by using force cannot possibly be successful in long run. In any case, the damage is caused to forest cannot be attributed to only the local people. One cannot turn a blind eye to deforestation caused by industrial needs or development projects like building roads or dams. The damage caused in these reserves by tourists or arrangement made for their convenience is also to be considered. So we can even understand how this forest management should be practicing rather than just building roads or dams. The forest conservation is an important step. We need to accept that human intervention has been very much a part of forest landscape. What has to be managed in nature and what may be extent of its intervention. Forest resources ought to be used in a manner that is called environmentally and developmentally sound. In other words, while the environment is preserved. The benefits of the controlled exploitation goes to the local people, a process in which decentralized economic growth and ecological conservation go hand in hand. The kind of economy and social development we want will ultimately determine whether the environment will be conserved or further destroyed. The environment must not be regarded as a pristine collection of plants and animals. It is a vast and complex entity that offers a range of natural resources for our use. We need to use these resources with due caution for our economic and social growth and to meet our material aspiration. Otherwise, we will be left without anything. Thank you for now. Next session, we are going to study management of forest.